everyone, and welcome back. My name's Sonia from Celestia Astrology, and with me I have my good friend Mandi from Ecstatic Astrology. So, hi Mandi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, thanks. So today we're going to be looking at February for the Astro Weekly update, 12th to the 19th. So we're all ladies from Asterosphere Kairos. So you'll find Asterosphere Kairos on YouTube, which might be where you're watching this, or you'll find this on the Substack as well, and on social media. We've got Instagram and Twitter. That's where we are. So, okay, this week we're looking at the 12th to the 19th. So we've covered the full moon in Leo last week. We're going to be going over here to Mercury and the Sun both entering Pisces. So this is going to be a change of the energy from Aquarius to Pisces. See, and this is just so you can get a feeling of how the whole looks if you haven't caught any of our previous episodes. But you might want to take a screenshot and just follow us through the month. So you've got all of the aspects that we're looking at. So yeah, we've got two this week, Mercury entering Pisces and the Sun entering Pisces. So this emphasis and spotlight of them both going into Pisces, this week is going to be all about this feeling this Pisces energy on the 14th and the 18th. And Pisces is going to be so important in the spring. We've spoken before about how the planets, including Neptune, the outer planet, and Saturn, which is the outermost planet that's visible to the human eye. So that also carries quite a heavy, weighty energy. They're both going to be moving from Pisces to Aries in the spring and then retrograding back. So this Pisces is getting a lot of attention throughout the rest of 2025. Really, when the Sun enters, that kind of just feels like, okay, here we go. It's kind of that climbing the roller coaster, and now we're getting to the top of it. And then once it goes, we're just going to be riding that energy.
That's right.
And the Sun, of course, bringing illumination to these thoughts and conversations that we've been having up to this point. And Pisces is this Jupiter rule place and the place of Venus's exaltation. But sadly, Venus didn't hang around. She's left. Venus has left the building earlier in February. So we've got this place that's benefic and dreamy, but without boundaries. But we have got Saturn there bringing some limitations, some boundaries, some restrictions. So that does help a little bit, I think. How do you this week, Mandi?
This week I'm, having fun. I think I love it. It does feel dreamy. I think the one thing that, even though it looks like maybe not a lot's happening, or like not a lot of transits are making a splash, maybe there's a lot of change because Mars is slowing down and ruled by the moon. Mars is retrograde. So, the moon's movements will keep things interesting no matter what. So I think that's all I have to say. It is going to be quite a dreamy week. And the 14th is Valentine's Day. So,
of course. Yeah, don't miss that. They're just like Mercury and Pisces is kind of lovely, isn't it?
For that day, yeah, I love that.
Go to the chart so we can see how it looks, and that moon Mars will make more sense. So we've got here at 0, just moving away from the Sun a little bit, but still combust. And it's going to be here in Pisces until the 3rd of March. So it's just got just over 2 weeks. So it's going quite quick, gathering speed, which is what usually happens after meeting with the Sun. Obviously, it'll be meeting with Saturn and Neptune and the North Node. So again, when it's meeting with the nodes, there's kind of a fated karmic quality and maybe a pull to increase as well. And kind of bringing our attention, I said last week that Mercury is now in a philosopher phase. So it's kind of bringing that vibe to this dreamy place with no boundaries. So as we're getting this information coming through from ruler Jupiter in this square.
Yeah, and what mutual reception, but what Krista calls mutual deception here, which I like, because Mercury and Pisces to me is like a mini retrograde of Mercury. It just is. And Mercury will go retrograde eventually back into Pisces. So there is a little bit of this illusion bend to Mercury and Pisces. And, as it ingresses with the moon opposing Saturn, I think there is this emphasis on the eclipses coming, because Saturn's going to be present with the eclipses. Saturn's going to be present with Venus and Mercury retrograde eventually. So there is this moment where Mercury enters and it's like, hey, have you thought about this area? Because Mercury is our mind. Mercury is how we communicate and think and move about daily life. So I think it's important for it to be joining this sign right when it is, especially with the moon opposing Saturn.
Yeah, we might find like ideas and inspiration coming from different places. I mean, we quite often see a lot of our creative people, musicians, poets, artists, and everything quite often have Mercury in Pisces. You know, they don't communicate maybe in the conventional way, but they communicate through the language of their medium that they've chosen, which is just a lovely thing for that Pisces Mercury, but it is in its exile and fall. But that just means it's got to work a bit harder, get creative about how it's working and what it's bringing up, and do things in a different way. You know, when a planet has dignity by exaltation, it's performing very traditionally and as it's expected. But when it's exiled, it's going to perform differently and be outside the norm. So that is lovely for bringing in that inspiration, that those new ideas and those qualities that can come through dreams or puzzles, or you know, that could disconnect from the normal social media or something, but connect from that and a connection with our other ways of knowing. Just because these, of course, is mutable, which just means it's changeable. If you think of the water flowing as like an ocean, how it's ebbing and flowing, and how the tides come in and go out as the moon moves, it just brings that way of like people can ride the waves, or boats can sink under the waves. So there's different ways of working with it if you're choosing to, but it's also receptive and intuitive, and it holds our memories and our emotions and our instincts. So in that way that it's boundaryless, that there's nothing stopping Mercury. You know, there's that quote, if you can be a drop in the ocean or the ocean in a drop. And it's that thing of perception. You know, how do you perceive this? The images of Mercury and Pisces. I mean, I've got a friend who is a Pisces sun, but like forms totally freak her out. You know, she just couldn't even begin, especially an online form or something. She's got to complete it. We kind of work together to help her, because like the Pisces is just like, I'll do a form.
Yeah, it really is. You get lost. And I think after the trine of Mercury to Jupiter by sign for so long, that this might be a welcome disconnection from maybe the information overload. And there has been a lot of that, I think, especially with Mercury's transit through Aquarius. So Jupiter is direct. Maybe we are able to get to the truth quicker, almost like I know exactly what site to go search for something, so that way I can go back to my meditation.
Yeah, and just the answers coming in meditation so much easier. You know, if you set an intention to meditate on something, or you know, and I've done that so many times. Especially if I'm stuck with something and I'm looking for inspiration, and it's just okay. I'll just ask, can I have help with this? And you go and meditate, and then the answer is just bang straight there. And it is quite amazing how that can work. And you got the answer, and off you go again. And it just brings that ease of that information coming through like that, especially with Mercury and Jupiter connected in that way.
Yeah.
With Mercury moving towards Jupiter.
Yeah, and here in the central U.S., that I'm in central U.S. time, that happens at 6 a.m. So we get it first thing in the morning here. And if you see the times on the screen, the central U.S. will always be about 6 hours before this, and that's just a good marker if you're looking at times. But I do find it funny sometimes that London will have 6 hours of that day, and we get to just wake up here with Mercury and Pisces, you know. So I do think about that, because sometimes whenever there's an ingress early in the morning into Pisces, whether it be the moon, anything, or a transit, it's hard for me to wake up. So I pay attention to when the Pisces ingresses happen. So that morning you may want to set a couple extra alarms if you're enjoying your dreams a lot. It is because Mercury's in Pisces at 6 a.m. So
yeah, it's that feeling of I just want to stay with this dream and find out what happens.
it's so, and that they might have been strong. There's so much in Pisces right now anyway, and might have been pretty strong and dreamy, and I enjoyed that. So that'll be something to look forward to with Mercury moving in Pisces.
It shows how quickly Mercury moves as well, because we had that long time of opposition where Mercury was in Sagittarius, where it retrograded opposite Jupiter. It just went on, didn't it, over through December and January. And now it's pretty square. It just seems like blink of an eye between that position and now suddenly they're square.
When you look at Mercury's phases to something like Jupiter, especially in its home sign, it's important to know that, okay, it's almost like a full moon, but with Mercury and Jupiter. And it was in, like you said, retrograde Sagittarius opposing Jupiter. Now it's moved to its last third quarter kind of square with it. So that's something to note as well, because it completes something you're supposed to sort of act on it with the third quarter square. And because it's moving fast, it'll square Jupiter pretty quick. So the ingress is something to pay attention to with the Jupiter story. I think Jupiter and Mercury are really important to each other right now.
Yeah, I think we said before about the moon being in Mercury's sign of Virgo. And I also always find a Virgo moon is so useful if there's jobs or tidying up or organizing I need to be doing. It's like, yeah, just wait for the Virgo because I'll just get on with it then and it gets done. But I wonder if South Node in Virgo will make a difference then when that comes in.
Yeah, the purging gets stronger with the South Node. Yeah, it's like, let's just really get rid of everything. I might just throw my couch out in the driveway or something.
Excellent. Yeah, a little word of caution.
Little word of caution, that's for sure. But yeah, I do love that the moon is sextile Mars here as well. I know a lot of people call that aspect because Mars is trying to Saturn. I call it a painter's knife because it makes this little strange triangle where you get to the point of something. A painter's knife is to make a small bead of paint that gets to the point. And so this gets to some sort of point. So this day, I mean, I expect there to be some revelations or something, especially emotionally with the moon sextile Mars.
Yeah, and that ingress quite often carries like focus of the significations. So Mercury being co-present with Saturn, like bringing energy through, is going to bring that focus to that aspect that's going on, that connection that they've got.
That's right.
The moon ruling Mars and then Saturn there in Jupiter's sign. So yeah, it's kind of linking them all together. If who's feeling this, it's certainly the mutable signs. So you've got the Pisces and Virgo in the opposition, but then you've also got Jupiter, but also Sagittarius, although it looks like it's empty. Jupiter's ruling it, and Jupiter's ruling these planets here in Pisces. So,
yep, exactly. And that's why I say look for the answers in the empty signs sometimes, because a lot of times if something's active, it pushes the theme out into the empty places, into a place where there's where you can release pressure. So just because something's
I love the energy of like the empty countertop in your kitchen, like when everything's sort of clustered up on one side and you've got this little bit of empty space, and that's where you can go and work. Do the thing. And it was like a really good analogy.
Exactly.
But also like with that Mars being activated again and stationing, like focus and connected then with Saturn and the moon. So those cardinal signs as well may just feel this ingress. And anybody who's got Mercury, Mars, maybe even the moon as their Lord of the Year.
Oh, the sun in Pisces. I love it. I have 2 people in my household who are Pisces suns, so this is getting close to birthday time for them. Dreamy, imaginative. The sun, I love the sun in Pisces. I think it does well there because it is starting to gain light. I mean, Aquarius is really, okay, yeah, we're getting the light back. But Pisces is like, oh, we actually are. You can notice that the days are starting to get longer. And I think that's what leads to the dreamy quality of it. The sun becomes more powerful, but it's like also this, let's finish up the winter. We're kind of going to put it behind us, but this is the coldest part of the winter. You get things like frozen fog here in Alabama where I live. And that's if it's cold enough, and it's rare that it is, but this winter has been cold enough. And Pisces is fog in astrology, and it never fails. If there is a Piscean moment where I live, it is foggy and gray, and it's just so perfect. It's always just right there. So yeah, I mean, this is a time to go into that spiritual place in yourself, especially before the spring, before we get started, before the eclipses. This is the moment to kind of, I guess, disconnect, but with a purpose. We're not disconnecting to float away. This is disconnecting to get ready, So meditation, imagination, delusion, illusion, always, caution with that. But I don't know. I don't think there's too much else to say about it except for to try to stay grounded. Luckily, Saturn's there. I think that helps a little bit. But Jupiter is the ruler. And I think that's part of the reason I love a Pisces sun time, because, you get to have Jupiter, the benefic, as the ruler of the sun. So Jupiter's ruling a lot right now. And I think really the major focus, because the sun goes into Pisces every year, the major focus to me is that there's so much. There is the sun, Mercury, Saturn, the North Node, Neptune. You just rattle them off. And eventually Venus will be back there. So lots and lots of focus on Pisces. If you're a water sign, I think specifically with Mars and Cancer and all of this Pisces pile up, and even the moon in Scorpio this day is important for water signs in general. And at this point, with the sun ingressing Pisces, we have the full width of Pisces activated, because Neptune is at the 28th degree. There's only 1 degree of Pisces that we haven't really explored with Neptune coming up, So I think if you're a mutable sign as well, obviously, Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces also, this will be big for you. So water signs and mutable signs, pay attention.
Because that's kind of like a whole sign grand trine, isn't it? You've got the trine to Saturn, but the moon's making a trine there.
Yeah.
The sun and Mercury, like exact, but in terms of whole sign, it's like this beautiful little grand trine.
Yeah, and the moon will complete it as it moves through Scorpio.
Yeah.
It will be pinging every single thing here. So luckily we have made it, past the full moon, and we're starting to get into third quarter square territory. But this is just before that, so you can enjoy this date a little bit, I think. And there's no major squares really, except, Venus is whole sign square to Mars, but that doesn't seem super significant to me, considering it won't make the exact square. So except for, I guess, Jupiter to Pisces, Mercury's coming into a little bit of a square with that later on.
Yeah. But there's still at the moment whole sign squares that we're looking at, which are sort of realize they're not as intense as a degree-based square.
And I don't know why, but Pisces to Gemini squares to me are almost laughable. It's like, you can get some really hard squares in astrology, but these are more like, they're more existential. They're more, maybe confusing, but they're also almost fun, like circusy type squares. So yeah, get ready for the carnival incoming.
Yeah, Gemini just has that trickster element of Mercury, because in Virgo it gets a bit more serious, but it feels the inequality for Mercury in Gemini just feels that bit more fun and light. What it's going to do. It
does.
And of course,
go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say Pisces being ruled by both benefics as well, to have all the signs there that both got the benefics. You've got Venus and Jupiter ruling. So you just got, there's nothing not to like.
Yep. And, this is starting to get into Mardi Gras season. So I guess the carnival is a good example of that. And it does definitely seem like there can be some fun had with this. And I know that there are some things coming up that may not be like traditionally fun with the astrology, but this moment is like, okay, I think we're in a little bit of a fun time between the Mercury and Sun ingress into Pisces.
Yeah, there's always a clear up after the party, isn't there? But
oh yeah, and I think we will have it when Mercury meets Saturn.
Yeah. But for now, enjoy the party. And I was just sort of reminded, like the sun and everything it represents when it goes into Pisces, like the clarity and the light spirit and achievement and mastery and ideals. And sometimes it prefers like that fiery place, because obviously it's Leo, which is a fire sign. So in this water, you think of like water can put fire out. So we've got to reach to find that fire. And again, with the sun, it's peregrine here, which means it's not got essential dignity, but it's not also losing dignity. So it can look to Jupiter and Venus and help them, but also get support from them. So that Jupiter in Gemini and what Mercury's doing, of course, Mercury's so close to the sun, it just feels like they're all on the same page to some degree.
Mm.
Venus being the bound ruler of that ingress as well just feels nice.
It does. It really does.
She's providing the resources from Aries, so she's got that fighting spirit. And of course, the sun is fighting that battle against the dark. That last battle in terms of Aries is the return to the light, but in Pisces we lose it. So she's already bringing that female warrior energy in that she's getting from Mars.
Yeah, and applying to, even though it won't exactly sextile Jupiter, Venus is pretty close to a sextile with Jupiter. So that makes me feel like there is some support there. Each benefic is in a place where they can see each other, and I like that.
Yeah, I mean, this stellium as well is in this whole sign sextile with Uranus, so we're back to Venus's sign, but the awakening, disrupting, change-making energy of Uranus as well coming in. Change being afoot. Uranus seems to be triggered a lot by these ingresses that we're looking at.
It's true.
So that concludes our week, and we will be back next week. We'll be looking at the 19th to the 26th of February. So I've been Sonia from Celestia Astrology, and with me, Mandi Ray from Ecstatic Astrology, and we are both members of the collective Asterae Sophia Kairos. So do find us. And if you've enjoyed this content, please do engage with us. It really helps us to know how it's landing for you, and also how you're experiencing any of these transits. If you've got stories to tell, that really helps us as well to share. So we look forward to seeing you next week. But thank you for now. Bye.
Bye-bye.